All right, then I'm going to go ahead and get us going. This should actually be a relatively brief session tonight because not introducing any new materials, but just going over some of what we've done so far and looking at this final project, which I know we corresponded about a little bit to clarify some of the specifics. So maybe this will clarify it further for you. And if you have any questions too, I can address those. This is week 4, so as I said, there's no new content being introduced. We're wrapping up the major project, which is your visual mission statement, and I'll get into that in a minute on what that's going to look like. I have been working on the week 3 mood boards today and have gotten most of those completed. I have a handful left that I'm going to finish up after class tonight. And aside from that, be sure to take a look at the professionalism assignment because there is a reflection video component to that that's sometimes overlooked. So don't miss out on that. But aside from that, the design draft is the only thing left to complete. Did you have any questions that I could get out of the way really quickly before we get into the meat of the presentation? Okay, great. So I've been taking a look at the typefaces. For the most part, these were looking really good. It seemed like most of the class were pairing typefaces very effectively, picking fonts that were really had good contrast but had a compatible style. And that's the tricky part. And that's sort of a part that's hard to teach specifically because it is there's so many different possibilities. But oftentimes the contrast, picking two very different styles can work really well because it gives just a lot of visual interest. When they're too similar, there is, in my experience, more of a clash. Because if you have, say, two hyper futuristic looking typefaces, they compete for the same themes and the same look, whereas putting a really stylish typeface with a more utilitarian typeface looks a little more well planned and harmonious. Take a look at the feedback that I put on your mood boards. In a few cases, my comments were along the lines of, these are great typefaces and I think they'll work, but they give this impression, like I'm seeing this particular impression coming from this and it might not match what you're going for. So, really put some thought into that, maybe do a test run on a practice graphic and see how they look together, and and use your judgment in that way. All right, and now to the design draft. Some of this will be review because it did come from our messages, but the idea is that really what I've tried to simulate with this project, with all the process of this project, is the creative direction or the planning phase of a media project, because you don't really just sit down and start building something. Out in the professional world, you plan it out, you make sure that you have the scope down, the specific creative direction down, to meet the goals of the project or meet the goals of your client. before you dedicate time and effort and very importantly, budget towards this media creation. You don't want to have any rework. You don't want to have lost man hours. So doing things like the mood board or like storyboards and scripts and that sort of thing helps to crystallize that before any major effort is put into it. And that's the purpose of the mood board, is very early planning stages. So you've been gathering elements. You've come up with an overall concept, picked out some images that kind of visualize parts of that concept. And we got into the color palettes and using color theory to pick colors that went along with your design concept and your overall mission statement, match the mood, the energy, and the style that you're going for. And then you pick the typefaces that, again, match the style and the personality. These two elements, the color palettes and the typefaces, you can, if you choose to, adopt as your personal brand, because personal branding is going to be an ongoing theme in a lot of your classes. So these could be used to inform that, some of those projects. And in fact, when you get to the graphic design course with Jacob Kaplan, he will refer back to this actual project. So it's worth hanging on to. You might not use this mood board again, but some of these details could be of use. It's not set in stone. Of course, once you're out of this class, then you're free to change it as you wish. But again, this is all planning. So use this as brainstorming time. So all this is leading towards something. All this is building up to a design that this mood board has been helping you plan. So now you're going to bring all these elements together and use your Photoshop skills from the practice activities to create your design draft. I called this a design draft because we're really kind of playing the role of the project manager or the creative director who's just kind of setting the scope of the project. And then you might hand it off to a team of graphic artists who can put it together, based on their expertise. So we're creating a draft. This is something we could say, here's what I have in mind as the culmination of all this planning. If you have the skills, then certainly you could create the actual working draft, the production version of this design yourself, but oftentimes you will have some other professionals working with you on the same team. So all those elements are coming together now. You're putting them into a single coherent design, and you can make use of any of the number of the Photoshop techniques we've explored. You don't have to use all of them or any particular ones, but whatever you need. In this case, Susie used some photo compositing to add the feet and legs into the pier. I think she manipulated the color slightly in the background and added in the text and some graphic elements as well, the lines. And notice that the fonts, if we go back, are these same typefaces, used in some slightly unusual ways. And I don't think she used one of them. Which one? I don't think she used Helvetica in that at all, but ended up using the display typeface for the big words, and then that script Kikalit brush font for the smaller details. So it didn't quite get down to the body text level of typography. And the colors are there as well. Going back, you can see that the navy blue, the magenta, there's sort of this pale blue, it's not quite a periwinkle, and then off-white. Most of those are represented here, especially the magenta wine color and the navy blue. Some of the pale blue and the off-white is present in the background. For the most part, though, those colors are meant to be your branding. So like she's used here in the title to start building a recognizable personality. So if she had created a logo and other branding materials, you might see those colors appear again and again. And this is the part you were asking about in your message previously, and that's, are you supposed to present your mission statement in words? Is it more imagery? How should that be presented? And the answer is, it's really up to your creative vision how you present your mission statement, but you want to communicate that to your audience in some way. I really think of this as more of like a movie poster. If you think of a movie poster, how the designer communicates the overall kind of gist of that film in a single image. And that's what we're doing with your mission statement. Telling a visual story of your mission statement and making use of color and visual style to enhance that visual story. Think about how we looked at Breaking Bad and the use of color to enhance the story and the characters. Make use of that here too, and then incorporate this brand colors within your text and your logos and graphics. And very importantly, don't forget your visual hierarchy. You know how to add new elements to an image. You know how to change colors in an image and manipulate text as well within Photoshop. Make use of those techniques to change the emphasis if you need to. If you want a particular object in the photograph to be the focal point, then make it very prominent in some way. Either its size, its color, the focus in terms of blur versus sharpness. All of these things can influence visual hierarchy. On the other hand, maybe you want your title or your keywords to be emphasized. In that case, vary the font size to really put those in the spotlight, so to speak. I'll be looking for a very deliberate visual hierarchy. So put some thought into that as you're working. And while I'm not requiring any specific Photoshop techniques be used, I am looking for some Photoshopping to be done. So not just text on an existing image, but at the very least, try cropping the image to change the focus. Do a traveling ducks kind of composite or something along those lines. You can also remove things. That was covered in the Linda lesson, is removing elements from a photograph. It's a little more complicated, and we didn't really practice that, but if you feel comfortable, you can do that as well. And just noticing your comment. Okay. Yeah, and there's time, depending on your schedule, to do a little rethinking and reconceptualizing. And you're still able to change your mood board as well. So if you do change, I think you've mentioned changing your color scheme, you can do that too for this final submission. Okay. I have provided a gallery of previous students' work, and it is now linked under the that design draft assignment, and I sent it to you as well. Just a few examples from that gallery. This one uses that photocompositing technique. She put herself in the design, and you see the brand colors represented, the blue and the white, in the graphic elements, not necessarily in the photograph, but in the pieces that she's added to the photograph. And how she's used the sharpness and the contrast to influence the visual hierarchy and the focus, making the background image lower contrast. So it's more of almost like a watermark, and allows her photograph and her slogan to really stand out. This is a case where the color palette is used throughout the entire image and not just in small graphic aspects or elements. The background is this rose pink, and then there's this grayish color. Yeah, it's very unique, and use the compositing techniques to isolate this piece, the girl in the TV set. And very symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism in the girl crying on top of the TV set, connecting to the negative media influence on personal image and self-esteem. And it looks like she's already come up with beginnings of a logo design as well. That's something you'll actually get into in graphic design in that course, is a logo design, but no reason not to start looking at that now if you feel comfortable with it. This one's much more stylized, more kind of an interesting art style. The colors are used throughout, so the crowd has been changed to that teal green with a complementary rose colored in the background. Looks like an image of fireworks that have really been had some filters put on them. Notice how minimal the text is. Memories worth planning. With the brand name JR Events, so you kind of infer that this is an event planner that's creating memories and having this really interesting visual style helps to convey that idea. There's a lot of imagery in here, kind of hidden. A lot of different symbols, like a camera, a book, looks like a teddy bear, and a guitar, and so forth. And I think those were more personal influences on the student. I would say make those a little more overt if they're key parts of your design. Make sure that your audience is going to pick up on that. This one's a pretty powerful image. This is, I think at the time I was having students select a subject. It was more open-ended than their mission statement. So this was a refuge for women. With that, the theme was beauty from ashes, meaning women coming out of these bad situations and re-emerging as healthy individuals. And this is a photo composite. The only thing I would have suggested changing with this is to flip it so that it goes from the kind of the abused image on the left and the healthier image on the right, because we tend to see that as the transition, the progression from left to right, in terms of chronology and timelines. And I think this is the last, this is the last one I have in my slides. There's several more that are in the gallery that you can take a look at as well, that are newer. But in this case, he experimented with some of the filters and color effects in Photoshop and just made it very stylized and artistic. Use of complementary colors to make his name stand out. That's an example of how to build that into visual hierarchy, allowing the darker text to take a back seat. A lot of the themes really connect. Beauty and nature represented in the rows. This is actually something you mentioned, is looking for those keywords in your mission statement, and you can kind of see how that starts to happen here with those words of beauty and nature and as things that are valued. Do you have any questions? Anything that that I can clarify with your project, or ideas that you just wanted to bounce off of me? Okay. So you have a pretty good idea of the direction you're going with your project? Okay, well, I'll take a look at the Google folder and see why those aren't displaying. But yeah, and I guess it's great that you were able to complete a draft of it early. But now you do have time to make revisions now that you're seeing some other possibilities. So kudos to you for working ahead. I know that's not easy to do with the accelerated speed of the class. Well, this was kind of my very short presentation for tonight, but if you don't have any other concerns, I'm happy to let you go for the evening, and if anything comes to mind, be sure to shoot me a message. Very good. Great. Glad to hear that you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll have many more enjoyable courses to come. But it's been good working with you.